The Brutalist is directed by Brady Corbett and stars Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce, and among others. And in this story, it deals with a Holocaust survivor that's played by Adrian Brody, who immigrates to the United States, where he's a successful architect. He's a architect that is trying to get into the life of being an immigrant to the United States, and he ends up waiting for his wife, who got separated with him during the Holocaust. And along the way, he ends up encountering Alessandro Nivola's character, who's his cousin, and he tries to get into work and trying to fit in with society and stuff. And along the way, after his struggles, he ends up coming across Guy Pearce's character, who wants him to pretty much like evolve into doing his skills as an architect by building a monument, and end up pretty much also wanting to have like 5 different layers of making one of the biggest building monuments where he lives at, in honor of some personal stuff that has to do with Guy Pearce's backstory. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Brady Corbett, who I'm not really too familiar with. I've heard he's done some other films I've heard about. I may end up checking out some of them. There's this one called Velox, or however, I'm sorry if I can't get it out, can't pronounce it, but I heard it was good. It was with Natalie Portman. That came out a few years ago. That came out some years ago, and so I heard that one was good. And then going into the trailers for this, it got me really interested, because I do enjoy these type of epic type of movies that we used to get from like The Godfather, or movies that's about living the American dream and stuff. This definitely was reminding me a lot of The Godfather, especially with the opening scene being very reminiscent of Godfather Part 2, where you have the immigrants coming in and they're having to, trying to get into America after, surviving from the Holocaust and stuff. And then with the whole like being in seeing the Statue of Liberty and stuff, it's basically like a metaphor where you're seeing like the birth of someone who's coming out, and it's like the birth of someone who's seeing something very visionary. And going into the trailers, it got me really, pumped for it, because it seemed like one of those kind of movies that, from what I heard, was actually shot on a very small budget for about $9 million or so, and not including the marketing stuff. That's really surprising, because it was basically going for that old school type of filmmaking level, where it was shot, released in IMAX, and it was filmed in what was called VistaVision, from what I heard, which is very interesting. So it definitely had me really interested in seeing Adrian Brody making sort of basically a comeback after many years of not really, having much work over the years, and that's really prominent, because ever since he started in the movie The Pianist from 2002, it seemed like he's really, after he won the Oscar for that, his career was taking off for a while, and then he kind of got into some hit and miss movies for a while, and went into basically direct-to-video territory and independent type of films, and it seemed like this was like his biggest comeback in years. And to this day, I still need to actually check out the Pianist, because I actually heard that actually is a really great movie, and for what I've seen of it, he is really great in it. And I kind of was having like wondering if this was meant to be like a sort of spiritual sequel to that, where in that one it was all about the actual Holocaust itself, where he plays a musician, and in this one he's a survivor that's trying to fit into the United States. And so and what I also heard too was that this film was actually one of the first movies that I've actually heard in a while that actually had the prominence of having an intermission, where it was literally almost 15 minutes long with having a break between acts. And so my expectations were open-minded, and I was thinking that this was definitely one of those movies that they were going to be released that you don't really see too often anymore, especially when they're meant to make on that kind of old school filmmaking level. Because and with it being also shot on that kind of scale, it makes you really wonder how it was really going to do with that approach. And so after upon seeing the film, this was everything that I thought it was going to be. It was not only a grand epic, but it was also telling a very cautionary tale about the parallels that happen where he's trying to get his family into, trying to work out things involved with this wealthy family that's played by Guy Pearce's character. But also there's a lot of parallels that happen where you see a lot of the stuff that's happening involved with not only the stuff that he was pretty much going through in the Holocaust, but it's reminiscent of eventually stuff that takes on a turmoil later down the road. And I'll leave it there, because there's some really dark stuff in this film that I can't get into detail without going to spoilers. But that is, to get my pros out of the way, I thought the performances in this were all phenomenal. Adrian Brody, he is definitely, up there with like a really underappreciated actor, and I think that he really deserves a great Oscar nomination for this, and he is nominated, so I'm really glad to see that he's made a really big comeback with this. And not only does he really shine with a lot of his charisma that I've seen in other films that he's done, but also his intensity, where he's going going for it and being, emotional at times. He really knocks it out of the park. The same thing with Guy Pearce. Like, I've always found Guy Pearce to be pretty underrated, especially when he plays like really sinister kind of characters in the past. And here, this is definitely one of my favorite performances of his because he really knocked it out. Where he was not only menacing, he was very, menacing at times, but also just very, in that kind of guy that you're basically seeing how he's very nice and comes across as like really, wanting to get, Adrian Brody's character into his own way of providing for him and stuff and all that with his family. And just there's something about him as it goes along that you kind of think that something's up. And I really appreciate it. I really, you really dig deep into it where, you see a lot of the stuff that, he's really pushing for Adrian Brody to build this monument and stuff. And a lot of the struggles that he's doing where not only is he also like getting like, swaying away people that are trying to really that are bringing him down, but also there's points where even he has like, because he believes in Adrian's character, but it's just the way that he plays it off. It's just always really top notch the way he comes across as where he has those freak out moments. And also one of the things I got to appreciate with Adrian Brody's character in this is that you also do see the flaws of him as a character because as it goes along, it goes to show that not only is he trying to you see a lot of what he does best when he's designing these buildings and stuff, especially other architectures that you see the layers that they play it into, but there's also points where he's also getting into drugs and alcohol. It really takes a really big plot point that I actually really found I really bought in the way the movie played it out with. And it also, the other one I have to really appreciate is Felicity Jones in this because I've really admired her as an actress and I've seen her in a lot of other stuff I've enjoyed like Monster Calls, Rogue One and stuff like that. And here she really knocked it out where she was not only, very vulnerable where she's, kind of in the middle of everything that's happening, but for a while there's actually a point where you actually don't really see her actually come into the movie for quite a while, and because most of the film you just basically hear her narrating her layers and stuff that to him, and it has a really big build up that I will it was all worth it because the movie, the way it plays it out is basically like watching two films, and the structure of it I have to appreciate because it's like you're seeing the first half of the journey that you're seeing Adrian Brody having to go through the way of trying to design the building and stuff and working to actually get to it. And then when you get to the second half, it comes into play where the things go into a darker territory, which I have heard can be kind of hit and miss, and I can see it doesn't work quite as well as considered the first film, the first part of it. But I still really enjoyed the way that the movie played along because I did feel like things, as it goes along, you start to see a lot of the things that happen when conflict tends to happen where things aren't going a certain way, and there is a really good, in the way that it plays into the ending, I actually really did buy it because in a way it does work on a metaphorical level that I can't go into spoilers, but I see what they were really going for. And while the epilogue may not be hitting some that compared to the way that it was kind of provided because it does feel very rushed at times. When it feels kind of rushed when it gets to the end. That's my only that I'll get into later with. The way it plays into, I still buy it because I get what it was trying to go behind its message and everything. And so, but also the really biggest standout for me the most is not only the cinematography, but the scope that they were able to really see, like the camera direction of seeing all the designs of the buildings and stuff, and you see everything coming unfolding. But also like the way that you're seeing the very epic scope where you see that very beautiful looking not only architecture, but also there's a part that takes place in Italy that won't go into too much detail, but it has to do with like going into this kind of like let's just say there's a mountain that they're trying to get basically the blueprints for or something for the building, and it's just very beautiful the way it looks like it looks like a glacier. I'll just leave it I'll say that there. The way that it's filmed and a lot of the landscapes and everything is just very mesmerizing. It actually does make me actually want to go check out museums and actually see a lot of the stuff they put into the detail on how they bring it all together and stuff. So there's that, but also the score in this was not only really top notch with the main theme playing throughout, but just it really puts you in that kind of mood where it has kind of a classical type of music, but it's the kind that you would really hear where you feel that you hear that very triumphant level where you want to see where the journey goes. And I think that's really the important thing the movie's trying to do is that it's more about taking the journey itself, and the way it plays out with its ending, I can see what they're really trying to come across as far as how everything unfolds together. Now, if I'm going to get to any kind of minor con, I will have to say that as much as I was really on board with a lot of the stuff that does happen, I will say that when it gets to the second half, it did feel like there was some stuff that either could have really had a little bit more built up to in certain regards, or maybe a little like expand on certain things, especially when you get into the stuff that involves later of the conflict that really happens. That I won't spoil. But because there's a really big thing that happens in this movie, and it really makes me wonder if they were really trying to maybe build up a little more with that, or maybe have more of a payoff with it that actually could have been resolved itself just a little better. I get them. It kind of leaves it on an ambiguous level that I see what they're really trying to go for and stuff. But other than that though, I mean, I still really did love this movie a lot, and it's definitely going to be on one of my favorites of the year of 2024. And so with that, I'm going to give the movie a low phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So. For those of you who have also seen The Brutalist, let me know in the comments of what you thought about it, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.